Don't want to jump the gun here, right?
And live
We're
on.
not starting the clock yet, Dennis.
Huh?
We're not starting the clock yet.
No, okay. Well, actually, just,
I want to ask a question before you want to start recording also.
well, she's recording now, so
I
you
am,
can
so
ask your
keep
question.
going.
You got another question, sir?
I want to ask Beth a point.
I'm just telling you, this microphone is very sensitive.
We can do it after, right? Or we can do it during. Okay.
Sorry.
Not to run out of candy nowadays.
My wife's always stockpiled all for us.
We had 150 last year, and I give out the big ones.
Yeah, you can get a lot of people in your area.
Well, they know I do the big candies.
Okay, they purposely.
So I buy like 10 boxes of them,
Okay, I think we're ready to go.
I think last year we thought, no, probably at 60.
Think we're ready to go?
You ready to go?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're streaming and we're recording, so we're good.
All set. Okay, the October meeting of the Board of Water Commissioners is called to order. Reading of the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Then carried. Presentation of bills and accounts.
I move we accept the bills as presented.
I
And pay the
second
bill.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. COVID-19.
I mean, there's really nothing new to report. We're doing well. We haven't had any other employees test positive. We're fairly stocked up on our PPE. I think the best we can do is remind people to stay sharp because, you know, it looks like the second round may be coming and we just need to not let down our guard, and I think we'll be fine.
Okay, sounds good. Cooper Lake improvements.
All right, the lake is down about 6 feet, which is about 2 weeks, is about a foot lower than normal and about 2 weeks ahead of when we hit that maximum. But it's supposed to rain Friday, so we're going to take some comfort in that. We'll, if need be, we will have people, which we do when we're down like that. Leaves on the intake grates have always historically been a problem, especially after a rain event. So we'll be having people around the clock keep the intake clear. We've done it before. Guys are really good about it, and we'll do whatever we can. We figure we'll be going out to bid around mid-December, assuming that we get DEC comments back. And we have, obviously we have to deal with all their comments, but that's assuming that there are no substantive comments from the dam safety folks at DEC, which we don't anticipate at this time, but you know, you never know. And that could push things out a little bit. So we remain hopefully optimistically on schedule to be able to, you know, start in the spring. The bid documents aren't quite in a format where I could send them to somebody to evaluate to see if, you know, we need a project, if a project labor agreement is a cost-effective thing for this project or not. But Schnabel certainly knows that they owe that to me, okay, so that we can get that going.
Hey, come on.
Hey, Jay, you're there. Okay, so that's all I have about Cooper Lake at this time.
Okay, so we're all set though with all the other approvals from SEQA.
Everything, SEQA's done, all of our, everything is complete. and we're ready to.
Judy, do you hear me?
Yes, Jim, we can. Yeah.
I don't hear you. Yes, you look.
Hang on. Jim, you need to unmute yourself.
Says on a should.
Jim's having technical difficulties. We can see you, Jim.
So we can hear him too, couldn't
We can hear them, but he obviously can't hear me.
If you hear me.
Because I think that's his wife in the background.
Wave if you hear me, Judy.
We can hear everything. It's okay. Anyway, all the permits are into the DEC. We have a complete permit package in. They have 45 days to either approve it or issue comments on that. So we're within that 45-day window. Typically what they do is they wait the 45 days and then they send you a list of things to start the clock over.
Tell her you don't hear her. I don't hear you, Judy. Is it on your end? I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
She says, no, it's not.
No. Take the video.
But we can hear everything that you're saying. Anyway, it's okay.
So the 45-day window for the permits is something separate then from waiting for comments on the,
They'll give you preliminary comments and that starts the clock, then you have to, that's typically how they do it.
but are the permits different than the actual plan review? Or is it all the same?
It's all the same. It's all, what they have a consolidated plan review.
Okay.
And so the wetlands folks are looking at it at the same time as the dam safety people. So they're all doing their little part together. So,
We're moving on.
yeah. So we're doing okay with them. It's just, that's typical of their process.
So where are we with the funding? What's the plan for funding then?
Well, we have bond approval for $15 million. I believe we told them that we were needed about $4 for this year.
Yes, it's got 4 in March.
And so we're paying the interest on that ban of $4 million. The rest of it is just waiting for us to move forward. And that $4 million should take us through the bid process. And then some. And it'll be interesting to see what the bids actually come in as.
Okay. Transmission main rehab project.
All right, let me, I have some notes here. This is the one, I mean, it's not that, this is, hang on, let me share my screen. And, okay.
Looks nice up there, I mean.
Right, this is
Down on Sawkill.
the Sawkill, this is the, and you can see my car there. I kind of went down close to the thruway and looked up the hill.
Okay.
Now, that was taken a week and a half ago. The grass is in a little bit better. The seed mixture that they, in this picture is, that's looking toward the thruway.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice. Yeah, there's 2 vaults here where all the valves are for the 2 inlet lines and the 2 effluent lines.
Your car there is parked on what, just a gravel driveway?
It's our driveway in there, gravel driveway. You come in off the road, and at some point we have to talk about fencing that in because it's very easy to just drive off of Sawkill Road and go down by the thruway and you'd never see anybody. So that's something that we will address down the road.
County to put up guardrails.
Well, what do you mean, put up guardrails? Well, there is guardrails there. There are,
Yeah.
but there's still an opening for us to access our property.
Yeah.
So it's all, but it looks pretty nice, I have to say. It does look nice. So there's 3 parts to this project. There was always phase 1, which was the influent and the new effluent line and the connections to the existing 3 going into the city and 2 coming from the plant. and the valves at Jockey Hill and Town Hall, and they're substantially done. There's a couple of punch list items. The third phase is the 18-inch line above the plant, and that's what we'll talk most about. But we have two more change orders on this almost done project, these two phases. They're highlighted in yellow. They total $18,580.79, and it's for a fence. The thruway requires, we had to take the fence down that was between us and the thruway, we had to take it down. And that's our share. Well, part of it, 50 feet of it is Schultz's responsibility because they had to do that to access some valves. The other part we took down because it was old, it was falling down, and it was literally thick with poison ivy. I mean, poison ivy vines that were 4 inches in diameter, going up around all the trees. Everybody who was at that site, contractor, water department employee, CDM people, every one of us got poison ivy at some point during the summer. It was kind of the thing that binds us, I guess. So that's the change order. Hopefully these are probably the last two substitute change orders. I say that. I hate to say that because that's like a jinx, but that's the two change orders we need a motion on tonight.
Okay, so what were they again?
One was for the fence, and that was in the amount of $14,580.79, and that's for 120 feet of fencing. It's the most expensive fencing I've ever seen. But it's hard to get competitive pricing right now because material shortages and these fence guys are just busy right now. It's the wrong time of year. And we had, for $4,000, that site is incredibly wet. And we had to get, they had a contract with Arrow to get hydrovac in there to be able to actually work and get the work done because of the tremendous amount of water that was in there. We were pushing them to get it done in a timely fashion because we had the reservoir offline during that. We only had hours to go. So we said, whatever you got to do, you got to get it in there. And so Arrow came on literally a moment's notice and brought 2 hydrovac trucks, and we got the work done and nobody ran out of water. So it was all good. It was all good.
So even though the fence was in rough condition, I mean, who owns the fence that was taken down, the thruway or us?
I don't know. I don't
I would
know.
assume that the thruway would be responsible for protecting the thruway with the fences to prevent people from accessing the thruway, not the property owners all along.
I would agree. That's unclear in my conversations with the thruway, but they do require that a fence be there, and we took it down. So we have to put it back. Plus you want to put it back. I don't think we want people, climbing off the thruway. So.
Unless they could come
Right.
in
So
for us.
if we can have a motion for those, that'll be change order 17 and 18.
I'll make a motion to accept change order 17 and 18 for a total amount of $18,580.79 to cover the cost of a fence and a hydrovac.
Thank you, Joanne. And can we have that as a cost not to exceed, because I have some question about how much of that fence is ours. I want to go over that. So the cost could be slightly less.
And so it's at a cost not to exceed that
Correct.
$18,580.79.
Correct. I should have mentioned that. Yeah. I was looking over the change order today, and I don't know if it's apportioned the way it should be.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any carried? Anything else on the transmission main?
Yeah, the third phase is to get that transmission main, the 18-inch main above, between Reservoir 1 and the filter plant repaired. It's a long story, so I'll shorten it up a lot. Ever since July of 2015, we had a pressure transient that broke that main. And shortly thereafter, we repaired it, but we could never get it under full pressure. We were always losing 1.5 million gallons a day. We couldn't figure out where it was going. And so as part of this third phase, we brought in New York leak detection and to be able to troubleshoot all those transmission mains. So they found 2 leaks, one on the 18 between the plant and town hall, and one on the 20 between town hall and Vinnie Water, that with this about $400,000 that we have left in the grant, that will get repaired. But New York leak detection was never able to find a leak on the main between the 18 between the reservoir 1 and the plant. It's kind of a mystery. And so Ryan and his folks, and Debbie's been instrumental in helping with this. We spent a lot of time up there and figured out that there's a line valve that would allow water to come out of reservoir number 1. We've never touched that valve. That valve has not been opened. There'd be no reason to open it. Since 1964, I think, was probably the last time we had a drought that they used the water out of that reservoir at that location. So I wouldn't even, I would never allow anybody to touch that valve. But in the confusion, I think, of putting that 18-inch main back online after we had repaired it back in 2015, that valve was opened. And the reason it was opened is because at that point, we had a very unskilled distribution system staff. We had the break on Tuesday in July, and on Thursday, our distribution foreman that had been here for 43 years, it was his last day of work, he retired. So during the repair, so there was a little bit of chaos, and that valve was installed in 1884, and it's backwards from all our other valves. So everyone went in there to make sure it was shut, and it was actually opened. So long story short, once we close the valve, 18 is back and can be put back in service.
Oh, good.
So that's good news. It's very good news. So Paul Cabral from CDM is working to draft a kind of a quick spec to get those leaks fixed. And we're going to try to put in some deletable items in there that we can elect to do them or not to see how far the money goes. So we'll clean up some of the old obsolete piping at Reservoir 1 that's a source of confusion that would cause somebody to go in that building in the first place and turn that valve. And we'll potentially see what a fence would cost to fence in all of Vinnie Water. So there's things like that that we'll put there. We may not be able to get them all done with the available grant money, but we'd at least, on the second WIA grant that we have coming up, that we're still working on, we'd at least have firm pricing to be able to figure out what we want to do on that grant. I hope that makes sense, but it was a pleasant surprise that we didn't have to line that pipe. But I have to say, it took a lot of time and effort to figure out where the water was coming from. It took, analyzing the water in the pipe as opposed to the water in the other pipe, different sources, one being Cooper Lake and one being Reservoir 1. It took us about 2 weeks to come to that conclusion.
So for this next phase, it's 2 of the leaks on the 20-inch line.
One on the 18 and one on the 20.
Okay.
Yeah. One's, I would say it's probably 100,000 gallons a day. We've always wondered where the water, we kind of chalked it up to differences in meter at the plant says we're sending to Vinnie Water X amount, and we're always sending less than that. I mean, it just seemed that they always had to add a little extra to figure out how to keep it full. And so we knew that we just chalked it up to a meter discrepancy, and now it's probably a leak.
How much is this, how many gallons
We're thinking the discrepancy is about 100,000 maybe a day,
on both of those?
together. One, and the one below town hall is a little bit more serious than the other one. It's in the woods. They're both not easily accessible. So it's gonna be, that's the challenge of the repair, is getting in there. And it's leaking, there's a little hill above the Sawkill, and it's coming out the bank and going into the Sawkill. So it's not like somebody's yard is flooded, or, you know, we're creating a crater under the road. It's in the stream.
Okay, so again, we have to go through, plans have to be developed.
And these should be rather quick plans. I mean, it shouldn't be
Right,
anything,
it's just, it's.
right. We should be able to get it out, right, get it out to bid and, you know, see what those other items are, to add to it, to see how far, to see if we can maximize the use of that grant money, quite honestly. If we have it, we might as well use it for all, any infrastructure, related infrastructure improvement there that we can.
And so construction will be done probably next spring or next year sometime?
Maybe even sooner.
Okay.
We might have time to get it in before the ground freezes. I can get back to you with a better date. I'll talk to Paul about that.
Okay.
Judy, do you have
Yes.
any idea how much money this will cost? Because you're saying you're gonna probably have to use the 400,000 left over, and then.
Right.
Money?
I don't right now. I don't have an estimate for you. Normally a repair like that would be in the range of 20 or 30,000, but in one case, they have to build a road to get the equipment in. They have to build an access in. So, you know, who knows? I know what it would cost us to fix it in terms of manpower and materials. You know, the materials aren't much, but, you know, we'll see. But I'll get a better estimate. When Paul finishes the specs, he'll have a design estimate, a construction estimate, and I'll share that with you.
Okay, thanks.
If there is leftover money in this grant, I mean, can we use it for other things? Do we have to submit stuff up to whoever?
I think it would have to be related to things on these projects. So I think the things that I just mentioned
We'll use it all up?
would use it all up. And I think, you know, you could clean up at Reservoir One. I mean, you could install valves, you could do any number of things to make that a much more efficient place. And anything that we can eke out of that grant money on this 400,000, the second WIA grant that we got in 2020 is very much related and dovetails to this present project. So it'll just allow us to install more valves in the distribution system. I mean, it's just a kind of a win-win.
And the fence for Bingley Water, is that the one we were just talking about before?
Well, the fence that's between us and the thruway, but you'd really like to fence the boundary between our property and Boyce's farm, and maybe some to limit access from the road.
A gate or something up at the road?
Yeah. I mean, the vaults, those vaults have locks on them. The manholes have locks on them now. So, you know, it doesn't have to keep everybody out. I just don't, you know, you don't necessarily want people driving down there and moving in.
Okay. So more to come.
Yes.
Okay. That's it for that. Okay, we have 2020.
We're working to finalize that. We're gonna meet next week. With CDMs coming down, we're gonna combine it with the closeout for, you know, the transmission project and get that all finalized so that we can get the bid specs drawn up for that and get going on that project as well. CDM owes us their MWBE utilization plan, which they're working on and will submit. And some of the SCADA work is already, the SCADA design work is already in progress. That's already being worked on.
Okay. 2019 audit.
It's complete. Everyone got a copy. And if you have any questions, Matt and I can take a shot at answering them or get you answers.
Okay.
There were no major findings. I think we did okay. I mean, everything is, I don't think there's any recommendations for strengthening our controls or anything like that. So again, if anybody has any questions, just reach out to us. We'll get you answers if we know them. If not, we'll go to our auditors and get answers from them.
Okay. 2021 budget.
Well, Matt completed a draft, we reviewed it. I think we're about ready to meet with the board, as we always do, in kind of a special session to answer questions and make some changes. Couple of things, we don't have hospitalization numbers yet. I doubt the city does either. That's a big ticket item that we really would hopefully like to nail down before we finalize the budget.
And some of that exceeded what the 2020 budget was, right? The end result?
Not sure I follow your question.
Well, what are the actuals for 2020 versus what we had proposed?
The percentage spent as.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably the 75 because we pay ahead. So.
Oh, okay.
We paid in October already, so that, I think it's like 82 or
Right.
whatever. That's not representative of 9 months out of the year. So that's a little deceiving if you look at 9 months.
Okay, yeah.
So that number, percentage-wise, is pretty much right on where we're going to be by December 31st.
Okay.
So the way the spending to balance that budget, we send it out as a draft, it's not balanced. And if it were, it needed 3% rate increase to do that. But, there's things in there that we could talk about not doing. One thing that came to light today, when we thought we'd talk about it in the context of the budget, Matt's been looking at, alternative energy sources. We were with Direct Energy. He just got numbers from them, and they've increased their prices 3 cents a kilowatt hour. He reached out back to the contact in Central Hudson who works with him on this, and we've got an alternative provider that's given us a price even better than we had in 2020. So we'll move forward with that, but when you approve the budget, we'll approve, that as a vendor. So I didn't think there'd be any objection to saving money
No,
and keeping the lights on at the same time.
the lower we can get it, the better.
And Matt's done a really good job with that.
Okay, yeah, it looked pretty decent. I mean, lots of little things.
There's some equipment things, items in there that we could defer for a year or not. I mean, it depends.
Okay, so we want to set up a
Yes,
time, because we want to
yes.
plan to approve it at the November meeting, or?
You could. I think we could do that. I mean, certainly the town of Ulster would appreciate that. But that was our goal, to have it done then. If it can't be done,
Okay,
that's okay.
we have basically a month's time.
Yep.
So when is a good time to meet? I assume we meet in the same format as Zoom or whatever.
Yep. We could, yeah.
I'm free all next week. I don't have anything after school that I know of right now.
So Joanne, you're free all next week?
I think so. So far, I'm looking at my calendar. I don't think
Okay.
it's on there unless I forgot to put it on.
You're teaching from home, obviously?
I'm from home. I'm gonna be this way till at least probably December.
Okay.
And do we have to do it at 5 or can we do it at an earlier time?
I can do it earlier. I could do it as early as, probably 2 o'clock.
Okay.
2:30.
Okay.
Bob, do you have any?
I can make it.
Okay. Mayor, you're the one with the big schedule.
So how does Friday look for folks, the 23rd in the afternoon? I have a gap between like 2:30 and 4.
Works.
Okay, so,
You're in that day? Okay.
so Friday, October 23rd at 2:30?
Yep. Okay,
Sounds good. We'll shoot for that and see where we end up.
thank you. In the meantime, if anybody has questions, shoot Matt an email or me.
Okay.
Matt's been taking care of most of it, so, but between us, we'll get you an answer.
Yeah, it's just massaging numbers, I guess.
Yep, and sometimes why he came to a conclusion on an estimate that he did. Most of the things that we had to adjust were things that aren't really, they're not significant items anyway. Like we're gonna have to do more sampling next year because of these new MCL regs that just went into effect. But that's $1,500. I mean, it's not nothing that's big or material, so. Water sales do not look like we've suffered at all. Collections look okay. Those are the two big items that we're looking at. The one thing we don't do ever, at least I've never done it, is inflate income to balance the budget. We've always been pretty conservative on income because and with our kind of environment, that doesn't get you anywhere.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, you're just fooling yourself.
Well, I mean, I think there's some other places where you can reasonably expect that you'll get more sales. You don't have sales tax, but things like that, it's a legitimate thing to do. But ours are pretty much based on what we've had before. So.
Okay, sounds good. We'll look at it next Friday, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, great. Quarry Street.
Everybody in their board packet should have had the letter from the business manager of the Kingston School District. Just to sort of recap a little bit, we talked about replacing that main in Quarry Street. Dennis Larios we contracted with him to do the plans. They estimate our construction costs at between 80 and 100,000. We looked at alternatives to, slip line, but the problem is the cast iron water main is here, and the Central Hudson has a steel gas main 18 inches directly above it for the whole length. So the easiest and best way to do this, and there's very few customers on that line, is to blast a trench on the other side of the road and just abandon that line in place. And so that's the most cost-effective way to achieve this. If we do that, we can put our new line in and hook over, but the city school district's property starts at Howland Avenue, which was a revelation to me because we fixed at least 2 breaks on their service lateral and these breaks take 24 hours. It's on rock, you fix one, it cracks up above, they're hard to dig, they're hard to find, you can't locate them easily because you're in this rock trench, and so it's challenging, it's always cold, it's challenging. It's not unusual to be on site for 24 hours. and 2 of them were the school districts. If I knew then what I know now, we would have just called them up and said, fix it. You got a problem, fix it. Right. But they've consented to doing theirs at the same time. It's a pretty easy bid. You know, it's a rock excavation per cubic foot line item, and it's per foot of pipe installed line item. And so we can measure out pretty easily how many feet we have and how many feet they have and split the baby right in half. So it shouldn't be a difficult thing to do. So if this board is willing to issue a contract that we, and then would turn around and bill them in some way, whether we get them to, once we get bids, they give us so much upfront of that bid, or they pay the bill as we send them the invoices, you know. I don't
What is
have.
the share, is it 50/50?
About, approximately, yes. That's Dennis's estimate.
I don't need details as to what the project is to incorporate that into the agreement.
Correct. And so there would need to be an agreement drafted between us and the school board if you're inclined to do this. And I think it's more cost effective. It minimizes, you know, the engineering services, the bid services, the mobilization. It makes sense to do it at the same time. And Bill would reach out to their counsel and just draft the agreements. So his letter was to get us started. If the board is willing to do this, then we would need a resolution, and then I'll inform them, and then we can start work on this agreement.
Okay. Sounds like something we've talked about, obviously.
We have,
for a while.
yeah, I mean, that main is just in bad shape.
So when they blast.
Yep.
With the gas line on the other side, obviously they
They
must,
do it, they must,
they must know how to do it.
they must,
Okay.
they must, they must. I mean, I'm not suggesting that Central Hudson may not want to de-energize that main
Right.
on that day, but it will all be coordinated with them in some manner. But, you know, Dennis figures that, you know, it's 2 to 3 week project. It's not a big project. He incorporated in the bid documents that if school is in session, we do it as soon as they got out. You know, we let the contract go to bid in February with the caveat that construction couldn't start until school was out, unless, of course, school never goes back. I mean, that's all up in the air. I think there's plans to go back in Kingston, but I think those plans are quite changeable based on the pandemic.
I mean, the central kitchen is up there at Bailey. And I believe they make lunches for the summer feeding program during the summer. So,
They'd have to figure something out.
yeah, okay. I mean, it's probably better that, obviously, there's gonna be a time when there's not gonna be water, they'll have to work around that as opposed to not having water when there's 500 kids or.
The time that they won't have water, because you put the new main in and then make the connections, it
Oh, true, so it's.
it really wouldn't be that long.
It's only gonna be like
An hour,
Yeah.
4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
We could probably work around their schedule, you know, to some extent.
So why do we have to wait for school to be out to do the work? Because the school bus.
School buses use that route, and the worst than the school buses are the parents. The parents going, dropping their kids off. They have been a challenge in the past. I have to get to work. What do you mean this road's closed?
Okay, so we need a motion to,
Yes,
I guess, develop an agreement with this Kingston City School.
yes, for them to replace their service lateral at the same time. And their service lateral is the same size as our main. It's an 8-inch service lateral going up.
Are you gonna put a percentage in that motion?
What do you mean a percent?
Who's gonna pay what?
The bids are on a line item basis. And so I think,
When you say share, are you saying share 50/50 or 60/40 or what?
each pay their proportionate share. If ours is 60% of the distance and theirs is 40, if ours is 40 and theirs is 60,
Whatever that is, I think that should be the motion.
okay.
Okay,
Good, I'll make that motion.
okay, so. You want to word that motion, Bill?
Yeah.
For the purpose?
Actually, Judy knows just what she said.
That each entity would pay their proportionate share based on the linear footage of pipe installed
Okay.
and rock removed.
As long as not understands what motions. So we have a motion, we have a second.
Second it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Otherwise, those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? And carried. We'll direct Mr. Clunian to work with the city school district to develop such agreement. I assume they're also going to pay for some of the engineering costs or not?
I would say that everything gets split proportionately.
Okay, good. That's it for Quarry Street then, right?
Yes.
Okay. The roundabout.
And no updates. I mean, work is proceeding there. One of the issues they're installing water mains as they get each phase done. They were going to put a new main in, charge it, and leave it over the winter and not have any flow in it. And we suggested that was up to them, but it would be like a popsicle and they'd probably have to do the work again in the spring. So they're probably gonna make that interconnection onto the next section, before they get done, but that's really their choice. The contractor's been pretty good to work with, calling us up, when they needed help and running stuff past us. There was one place where our mains were gonna be 10 feet deep, which is never ideal. And he called us, they were able to work it so that we could only be down 6 feet. And so they've been really a pretty positive experience working with them.
So have they replaced any of our water
Yes.
mains and are they back in service?
Yes, they started with the section on Broadway down towards St. James Street. Now they're working down in front of People's Place.
Mhm.
And then they're gonna make the connection over to the Albany Avenue side of that, where the roundabout, where Chandler Drive enters. And then I think in early next year, they're gonna start with the Albany Avenue section.
From Chandler Drive?
Yes,
Back to
yes, I believe so. But our water mains on East St. James Street are done. They're done from like in front of the Anchor Bar. That's all done.
Okay.
All
And they're
done.
all up and running and.
They're still working on the section in front of People's Place, but I expect, yes, that's all done.
Upper Broadway up to
Yes,
Anchor Bar
Yeah.
area and all East St.
Yes.
James's.
because what they do when they're doing this, they create dead ends. These mains are normally circulating and the water's flowing, and they're creating dead ends, in particular for the Anchor Bar. It's hard to run a food establishment when you've got nothing but rusty water because you are the end of the line. And so they worked hard to get that done in as timely a fashion as they could. And in the meantime, we basically dropped their meter, put what we call a jumper in, and allowed them to flush. There was no other place to flush the water except out of their backhoes. So, we tried to do what we could. The amount of water that we lost was nothing compared to them being out of business, not being able to prepare food. So, and that maybe went on for 2 weeks. And so we're trying to work with them as we can. Anyway.
Mayor, do you know where they are? No, there
He's there.
In regards to their whole process, the project, are they ahead of schedule or?
The last time they give us a kind of traffic update every couple of weeks, and so they're on schedule as far as we know. They have, obviously, with every big project, they've run into some things that they weren't expecting, but they've generally, they had good weather this construction season, so they were able to kind of get things, keep things on track, and so that's kind of the update that we have at this point.
And I was chatting with their foreman last Thursday, and that's exactly what he told me. On those issues where they were lost a day or two, they've been able to make it up, so they're essentially where they expected to be on schedule.
And it's all weather dependent, how late into the season they go, I guess?
I guess, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very impressed with how the flow of traffic, for the most part, has been maintained.
It's not as challenging to get through there as you think, as we all had thought it was going to be.
Well, I guess the big problem's gonna come when they actually start constructing the roundabout.
Right.
As opposed to doing utilities and stuff, where they do it in phases in different parts, so, okay.
The blacktopping that they're doing is, they're not doing the finish coat blacktopping, but all those areas that I just mentioned, they're actually putting down the finished base. I mean, and then they're just gonna come in when they're done and do the top coating, so.
Yeah, I mean, it looks nice on East St. James,
Yeah, that
part
area,
that goes
yes.
3/4 of the way up to.
Yep.
The hump. Okay. Tech City?
And nothing new. I mean, that's a problem that we're gonna have to deal with at some point, but for now, everybody who's supposed to be paying is paying, other than Tech City. I mean, farm to table is paying their portion of the bills for water that's actually being consumed. The county's, very, very timely in their bill payment. So we're.
And nothing on the county in regards to needs or things from us on that?
The only update I have is what I read in the Freeman.
Okay,
So no, they haven't reached out to us at all.
okay. Okay, correspondence.
I have nothing.
Superintendent's report.
Any questions?
I have one question. At
Okay.
the very beginning, you talked about how the difference between the water entering the distribution system from any water and the amount billed was the smallest in many quarters.
Right.
So where do we actually take, I guess, the production?
Okay.
Is that the Binney water,
That's the bidding water meter.
which is down below?
No, that's in the building. There's one on
Okay.
each of the lines. So we know we have a totalizer there, and there's a meter in there. And so we know what water's leaving the building, going down the distribution system. The consumption figure is the collect of all the quarters that we bill. They're out of our domestic meters. So Jane keeps that tally every quarter. So there's part of the difference is one's a traditional calendar quarter, so they're slightly off. But the other is that we had a valve for years that was cracked, a bypass valve that allowed that water was going directly from the filter plant into the city and bypassing there. So the number, it always would say we had, 300 million gallons that month, and really we were probably 350, it was a different number that we were sending in. And so that valve is now closed. And so the real amount of water that we're sending into the city is actually being recorded in that meter. Some of it was going straight in and not going through Binney water.
But
18-inch transmission main. There's a valve there that,
But if it's not going through Binney water, it's not going through the meter, so.
that's right. So it would say we sent 300, into town. We really were sending 350 into town, but it was never being recorded.
You can send water into the city without going through Binney water.
That's correct.
I never do that.
That's how we did half this project. Absolutely.
But if it's not going through the meter, there shouldn't be any. I mean, we were actually, what you're saying, our numbers actually were higher than what we were recording.
It was reversed. It was lower than it really was. But this is the first time that we've had these numbers this close. Whether we have fewer leaks, we know our domestic meters are pretty tight. But hopefully it's a trend.
We also have meters in the building that's down on by our landlord.
Yes, we do.
Right.
Mhm.
And all that's, there's nothing I mean, after Orlando Street is where it separates to the,
Mhm.
okay.
There's a meter at each of those lines. There's 3 lines going into town, and there's a meter on each one, and you can totalize those together.
Okay, do we ever do that to see?
We do, I look at it all the time.
I mean, that should be the same as.
It is now close. On a monthly basis, it's pretty darn close. It was always, the joke was, how do we create water? The compliance point says we're making water, more water is registering through the compliance point that's ever coming out of any water. Well, that's the reason.
Okay, yeah.
That's the reason. So it was, things are tighter, the valves actually work now.
Okay, well, we'll see next quarter, right? Hopefully we'll continue.
It'll take a while, but yes, we will. And this is probably next October will be the first month where we haven't really had any abnormal operations there due to this project. Sometimes we had all the water coming in directly. Sometimes, you know, to make these connections, we had to, we had a lot of abnormal operations to be able to make this work. There were times when if my hair wasn't white, it would have been. The good news is I didn't start pulling it out.
Mhm. And how are we doing at the laboratory operations? Are they pretty much back to?
They're pretty much back to normal. As you can imagine, Ulster County Health Department wasn't out collecting any of their samples. They didn't have their summer program going. Didn't have any camps or anything, very few to be able to monitor. But they still had their monitoring samples for the restaurant program and all those other things. And boy, they collected those in a couple of weeks.
Okay,
I mean, they made up for all those quarterly samples to the point where we couldn't keep enough bottles in
I
circulation.
think they charge them
They do.
as part of their like
That's right.
operational fee or their permit fee or whatever, so.
Or you can elect to have another, as long as you give them the results, I don't think they care.
Right.
Right.
But I guess the price they can give them versus going out in private, some mistake.
Right, so a lot of people elect to do that, and they do make some money on that.
One other question, and I probably get asked this quite a bit. Under the meters, what's the difference between frozen and stopped?
Oh, well, frozen meter, the meter actually freezes, and you can tell that by the way it breaks. The plate on the bottom actually
Stopped
cracks.
just means
It stops,
not damaged, it's just not.
the register stops working. And that happens, you know, more often than we'd like, but the good news is that in the office, we don't actually, if they get the same reading on an account 2 quarters in a row, somebody physically goes out there.
So that's why it's not being picked up until
6 months.
6 months later or whatever.
Right, so, and then they go out and they come back and they tell Jane, well, you know, the house is vacant. Or they say, nope, and then they get in, they make an appointment and they get in and they change out the meter,
Okay,
so. We estimate them anyway.
right, I just, weird to see frozen meters and,
There are vacant houses that now, real estate's pretty hot right now.
yeah,
So a lot of things that hadn't sold are now selling. People are buying properties and moving into previously vacant properties. And when they go in, you know, they find the meters frozen.
okay, I guess motion to accept the superintendent's report unless there's any other questions or comments.
I'll make a motion.
I guess I have a motion and a second there between those two. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried. Executive session, anything?
And nothing.
Okay,
Our staff is pretty stable, thank God.
that's great. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Basketball favorites.
Nice seeing everyone.
Okay,
Hi,
see you
Michelle.
next Friday.
Okay, see you in a week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
My wife was out shopping, I think last week or so, and she